But what I want to tell you is that today I feel the nearness of my Creator. Today I take a shower and I'm already clean from the inside out. I'm just washing a little dirt off. I laugh from my gut today. I feel like my innocence has been restored. My license plate says yay. I feel like I have the secret to life. And today I'm not above or below anybody. I walk shoulder to shoulder with my fellow sufferers, and we encourage each other to be the things that we never thought we could be. All I know is I want 5/9/97 to be my sobriety date, and that I'm busy in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, and that I'm doing the best I can do to be his vessel, to help his kids. That'll be my greatest legacy.
Well, hello, friends of Bill W. and other friends. You have landed on Sober Speak. My name is John M. I am an alcoholic, and we are glad you are all here, especially newcomers. Newcomers, that is, both to recovery as a whole and newcomers to this podcast. Sober Speak is a podcast about recovery centered around the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. My job here on Sober Speak is simple. My job is to provide a platform to the amazing stories of recovery all around us. Consider Sober Speak, if you will, your meeting between meetings. Please remember, we do not speak for AA or any 12-step community. We represent only ourselves. We are here to share our experience, strength, and hope with those who wish to come along for the ride. Take what you want and leave the rest at the curb for the trash man to pick up. Greetings from Studio AA, deep in the heart of Texas. Got little Ginge here in the house, and that was the voice of Hilary R.W. that you heard at the beginning of this here episode number 393, and you are going to hear so much more from her in just a moment. But first things first, this episode is made possible by Audrey, Mary Lynn, Laura, Tim, and Brad. And so you say to yourself, what exactly did Audrey, Mary Lynn, Laura, Tim, and Brad do? Well, they went to our humble little website, www.soberspeak.com. They clicked on the little yellow donate tab and they made a contribution. So thank you so much, Audrey, Mary Lynn, Laura, Tim, and Brad. This here episode number 393, is coming right out to youans. As always, we're going to let the other folks listen in, but this episode is coming out to you all. All right, if you didn't hear last week's episode, part 1 of Hilary R.W., I would encourage you to go back and listen to that at some point, especially after you hear this here part number 2. I don't know, you can hear it in whatever order you would like, but I would encourage you to hear both at some point. Once again, this is Hilary R.W. on part 2 of her interview, and this episode is called Innocence Restored. In this concluding episode, maybe that's how you say it, Hilary discusses the 4 major record deals that she squandered away, the 5 treatment and 8 detox centers that she gave the pleasure of visiting, or no, that's not how you phrase that. The 5 treatment centers and 8 detox centers that she visited, entered, whatever you want to call it, her lower power, her experience with a male sponsor and what that was like, her experience with the steps, which includes the entire amends process, and much, much more. I know you're going to enjoy the second part of Hilary R.W. And remember, we will have plenty of listener feedback at the end of this episode. Enjoy. Okay, everybody. So we are back again for the second part of Miss Hilary here. So, Hilary, I am going to go ahead and have you introduce yourself once again.
Okay.
And if you didn't hear the last episode, you definitely want to go back and hear that. Doesn't mean you have to stop listening to this episode, but anyway, I know you're going to enjoy that first episode with Hilary. Okay, so Hilary, go ahead and introduce yourself, give your sobriety date if you wish, and tell people where you live in this great land of ours, please.
Okay. I am Hilary R.W.
Yeah.
And my sobriety date is May 9th of 1997, for which I'm eternally grateful. And I live with my husband in Dallas, Texas.
Dallas, Texas. Now, okay, so there's a couple things I want to talk about on the beginning here. Like we didn't talk about this last time, but the reason we are sitting here talking today is because of a good mutual friend of ours, Mr. Reno John A.
Yes,
but everybody calls him Reno John around here. And I know you all are good, but you've known him for quite some time, right?
Many years. And I'll tell you, Reno John, my first sponsor, is very close to him. Actually, he sponsors her today. Back then, he didn't. She was sponsored anyway by somebody else. But he used to stop me outside the group, and he would say, "Hey, it says somewhere in our book that we have a host of friends. Can you find that page for me? Because I can't find it." And he would do this with me. And I want to tell you, John, we're not all here because we're all there. There are some predators in the rooms, very few, but there are some. But John is one of the great guys that always treated me with dignity and respect, even when I was dressed like a stripper and cursing like a sailor. I mean, he would sit there and just encourage me. He would encourage me, and he would look me in the eye, and he would treat me with the dignity and respect that I didn't have for myself yet.
Yeah.
I just love him to pieces.
Right. He's a great guy. He's been on this podcast for, 6, 7 times, something like that. As you know, he just has content and material that go for days and days and days. And it's all good stuff. I mean, he just is, he's top of the line there. All right. So last time we got together, we left off where you were 16. Well, and you gave a little bit of color around that time in your life, how you were going to try to find out some things in Arizona, but you were 16, you had been trafficked, and you were getting out of that particular period. And then we started talking a little bit off mic. And you said, please remind me to say, something about how, the dark past is our greatest asset. So what did you want to say about that particular period?
Well, first of all, I asked you in the last episode, am I being too emotional? Which I never need to apologize for being emotional.
Not at all.
That's just an old idea. Secondly, I say the things I say as I've gotten the courage to say them, because in our literature, it talks about our dark past is our greatest gift to help avert others from misery and death. And, there was a woman I would listen to on cassette tape, and she would talk about being on the streets.
Who is that?
Oh my gosh, that's the thing. I can't,
and the reason, because I used to listen to a lot of cassette tapes.
No, I know. And that's the thing. I was trying to remember. She died of cancer, but I remember she said, I'm a wife today, and that doesn't happen to girls like me. And she'd say, I have kids today, and I'm a mother. That doesn't happen to kids. And I'd sit there and cry, and I couldn't believe she was sharing those things, but I was so grateful because it made me feel less alone. And she was out of California, and you know what? I will hopefully At some point, I can call you and give you her name. Sometimes I remember, sometimes I don't.
Yeah, I understand. I completely understand. And I remember a lot of stories sometimes, but I don't remember the people who told them. In fact, I get people who write me on the podcast sometimes. They say, "Hey, did you have somebody on this mention this?" And they'll like say a story, and I'm like, "Man, I can't. I'm not sure. Like they can remember the story, but they don't remember where they heard it and stuff like that." But that's why we keep sharing our stories, right?
Yeah.
To give people. That's why we share experience, strength, and hope.
And that's why these recordings are so important, because I never got to meet her, but I listened to that cassette over and over and over, and other stories, now we have, then it went into CDs, and now we have, the way we do it online. So it's just amazing.
Yeah. And so back to Reno John, like, I guess you were speaking at an event with him recently, I think, right?
We were meeting before we both had to each go do the steps at a group at a different, our different, in the same area, kind of, but in different groups. Yeah.
So, and he called
me. But we
have
spoken together.
And by the way, your Hilary is with one L, is that right?
It is.
Yeah. And
thank you.
Yeah. I noticed that. And it's Hilary with one L. And also, when I saw that R, I know you're R.W. now, but I always thought, did anybody ever ask you if it's Hilary R.W? I'm sure did you ever get that?
Oh my gosh, they still do that. They still do. And I'm like, okay, yeah, ha ha ha, very funny. Can I tell you how old that joke is? No, I try not to make people feel bad, but because I know they're like, yeah, gotcha.
And I'm just the kind of doofus who would do something like that.
No, but people say it. They're like, oh, like Clinton.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, okay.
All right. So let's get back to where we were. So you're 16. If you want to catch people up where you were at that time, and then we'll just kind of go on from that point.
So I had just gotten away from being trafficked, not being killed, thank you God, from the pimp or from the people that were utilizing that, participating in those behaviors, I should say. So what happened is that my self-esteem was just, I had none, and my value was using myself, that now I am definitely not lovable. It's been confirmed, and I acted accordingly. And of course, my drinking and other outside issues went crazy. And, the thing is that I would try to get sober, and I would for periods of time. I actually even got 5.5 months sober at 19. Excuse me. Yes, at 19, and I was flown to New York to meet with some people to audition to be signed to a major label, and
for singing.
I did the audition, and they're like, they think you did great. They want to sign you. We went to the Palladium Club. I was 5.5 months dry in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. I had a sponsor in name only, and I could pop off stuff out of the book, but it was in my head only to fire back at the old timers that would shake their finger at the relapsers. And so it was always a battle for me, still fighting everything and everyone. And they offered me that glass of champagne, and I'm like, no, I'm sober. And they said, listen, it's only champagne. And, because I had not done my steps, and because I still believed, I thought it's just the outside issues that were a problem. Not remembering the blackout drinking, not remembering wrecking the cars underage. And I took that drink. Now, that night, I didn't go into a blackout, but the next afternoon, we were supposed to meet the executives, and my entertainment lawyer goes to get the executives, and he has his assistant pick me up and take me to the restaurant in Long Island, and that happens to have a bar, and I walk up to the bar, and I start ordering kamikaze shots and backing him with Long Island iced teas. And the only thing I can remember is the fact that I pulled a table onto myself, and I remember the shadows in the doorway. The next day, I woke up at her house where I wasn't staying with the same clothes on, having done a sundry amount of things to myself, with a note and a plane ticket that said, call us when you grow up. Now, I didn't do that one time. I didn't do that 2 times. I didn't do that 3 times. I ruined 4 major record deals because what I do is I build my life up, then I tear it down with a senseless series of sprees, and I do it at the wrong moment. In that moment that I'm wanting to fulfill a dream or try to connect with somebody, whatever is to my advantage. Because, see, I'm the kind of alcoholic, you can offer me everything I want on a silver platter. You can offer me possible self-respect, which I really never knew what that was. The respect of my community, I never really knew what that was. But you can offer me maybe having love in my life. You can offer me a career of my dreams. And guess what? I will take the drink at the wrong moment. And then the phenomenon of craving takes over. And I end up in places I don't want to be, with people I don't want to be with, doing things I swore I'd never do, or doing the same things again. And see, by the time I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, I had gone to the 5 treatment centers and the 8 detoxes. And it went from me being too young and too cute and too smart to me feeling like I was too used up, and I was even below everybody in AA, and see, that's the other thing. See, I'm either above or below. That's what my ego does. My ego and my insecurities, they have me above people or below people, not shoulder to shoulder, not a person among persons. That's what it does. And to me, that's all lower power stuff. So I'll tell you another another kind of God shot was, I had almost 2 years from about 19 to 21, because after I went out in New York, then I got sober, but I wouldn't finish my steps and I wouldn't get female sponsors because I didn't trust them. I thought they would just think I was dirty, quite frankly. I thought they could not understand a life that I had lived because I had felt so old. I felt so old at 16. I felt so old at 18. So I'd have these male sponsors. Now, they were respectful of me. Meet me at the club where the meetings were, do Joe and Charlie tapes. But I remember getting to that inventory. And then I remember my sponsor at 19 having me write out my life story. And it was like, then more memories came. And then it wasn't his fault, but I couldn't share those things. So I just departed. I went on the road with the band, didn't continue with my steps. And I eventually got sick on the road and went back to Denver, got another male sponsor. See, I keep trying to fit the old ideals. Now listen, nowhere in the book does it say we can't have a male sponsor. Nowhere does it say that. For me, it was too uncomfortable because of my history. But I know that many men have helped women in our program, and vice versa. So I'm not against it. But for me, I couldn't do it because all my abusers had been men. So I just couldn't share that stuff. And so there I was. And then I ended up going back out at 21, and I was in and out for years. And the thing I would do is I'd go work at organic health food stores. I'd go work at the vitamin shops, doctor's offices. I'm going to do everything but take the 12 steps because I'm going to get healthy.
Right.
Come out of come out of the hospital almost dying, detox myself with vitamins, prepare myself for 2 days to get back to a meeting to let them know I'm sober just for today, la, 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 la. And that was the other thing I did, is I would pretend like everything is okay. Everything's just great, just fine. Not going to let you too close. Come here, go away. And so there I was, and I had relapsed yet again. I had been flown out to Atlanta to sing for a record company, and I couldn't sing 5 notes. My voice was gone. And I go back to Denver, and I'm working back at the club, not wearing much. And there was a girl that used to pass out drunk in the corner. I used to tell her she needed to control her drinking. and I thought if because I'd wait till the end of the shift, at least I'd try. And, but then I couldn't show up to work. I was fired more times for not showing up. But, I walk in that one day, and it was a day shift, and I needed to get my stuff out of Hawk because I had, gone on a bender. And she's smiling. Her eyes are bright. She looks amazing. And I said, "Oh my gosh, what's up with you?" And she said, "Well, I've got 6 months sober in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous." I said, "How in the world, brown chicken, brown cow, do you have that working here?" And she said, "Well, on page 100 of my book, it tells me if I have a good business reason to be here."
Right.
And see, I couldn't even put it together a week sober at that time. I was every day. And, I was very interested because I wanted sobriety. And I hadn't had 6 months in years. I hadn't had a week in a long time. So she said, "Hey, I'm moving to Texas. Do you want to come down and visit for a few days?" Well, I said, "Absolutely." Now, I remember walking into a group here in Dallas, Preston group, and it's kind of like the Beverly Hills group of Dallas. And so I walk in and I'm wearing see-through stuff, cursing like a sailor, dressing like a stripper. But let me tell you something that changed, and you don't have to change cities for this to happen, but this is just how it happened for me. I went to that meeting, and for the first time, I just didn't care what anybody thought anymore. And they asked for burning desire in this discussion meeting, and of course I had a burning desire, and I told them that I was craving all the time, that I said, "I hate you, I hate God, I hate AA, and I don't want to hear about it after the meeting," with a lot of colorful words. Because I was educated, I had a PhD in profanity, and I practiced that degree very well.
So I have to tell you this. When I talked to John and he said you should have her on,
Yeah.
he retold, I think, that story, and he basically said she came in, she cussed out the entire group. He said he looked at somebody and he said, "You know what? I think she's going to make it."
I did. Little old ladies would get up and walk out of the meeting, and certain people, because they were like every day, it was like ad nauseum with it. So, and here I am, like 93 pounds, 5'5", looking like, like ridiculous, and going off on the meeting wearing these ridiculous outfits. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
And so the other thing I would do is I would get up 4 and 5 times during the meeting because I could not settle down. And I started taking numbers. I actually started calling the women, but then I started interviewing the women. Like, who's going to be my sponsor? And like, she has to have so much sobriety. And I thought she has to have enough sobriety since when I first came to AA. Well, I found one that was 2 years shy of that. And the reason I picked her, I remember calling her at 3:00 in the morning and a song had come on and it made me want to drink. And I vomited on her voicemail. And the next day I'm like, "I'm so sorry I bothered you." And she said, "No, I'm so glad you did that. Please continue to do so." And the reason I picked her, if you hear the whining baby in the background, she misses me, everybody.
Yes,
Me.
Maisie. I don't think they could pick that up from here, but Maisie, our dog, has made another appearance. She's really wanting to get near Hilary, but she's crying.
I'm crying for you too, girl. No. So I started, the reason I picked her is because, she would come in a meeting and she would sit and she was peaceful in her own skin. And any woman, it didn't matter what age, what background, what preference, what belief, what non-belief, anything. If the woman left the meeting crying or upset, she would chase her out to go be there for her. Mm. The other thing that she didn't do is she didn't gossip about people. Right. She did warn me about a couple of the predators. Mm-hmm. Like I said, that's not to scare anybody away. You just got to be aware. It's humanity in AA. Mm-hmm. But she said, "I'm not going to be interviewed, but if you want me to be your sponsor, you can just ask me." So then I'm like, "Would you please be my sponsor?" And so she said, "Yes, and there's a few things I'm going to have you do if that's the case." She says, "And they're not all in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous." And she said, you're going to call me every single day. You're going to call 3 women a day, and you're going to ask them how they stay sober today. You're going to go to the meeting after the meeting, meaning the coffee house or the restaurant. I said, what if I can't afford to eat? Or she said, you go and you sit with them. And a lot of times, just about every time, they would pay for my meal. And the only question I could ask was, how do you stay sober today? And these guys would be talking about their golf or the whatever. And they'd be like, okay, Bob, how do you stay sober today? And they but then we'd have a meeting after the meeting at the restaurant or the coffee shop.
Yeah.
And the other thing is I didn't have a car my first 9 months. And this is before cell phones. I mean, I had to use the phone at the club. I had to use pay phones. I had to catch the bus, and I had to get rides. And my credit was in the tank. I couldn't even get a checking account because I had written hot checks. And I owed tens of thousands of dollars to creditors, which actually took me 10 years in sobriety to pay off. But it was done sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. And I will tell you, the creditors, when I paid them back, some of them sent me letters. Some of them called me crying, thanking me.
Oh.
See, we make a difference, not even in our rooms, but to the world at large. So I do want to tell you one quick little story. My sponsor, okay, so I'm going to tell you a quick little story let me finish what my sponsor would tell me, and then I want to tell you the story about a man that had 32 years in the group. So she also said I had to get on my knees and pray to the God of my misunderstanding and thank him at night. And I said, oh my gosh, do I have to call it God? She said, no, I don't care what you call it. Just talk to it and ask it to keep you sober. So I called it MFSOB. And I, with 2 fingers in the air, even to God, I was like, forget you. I was just, because I was so mad. I felt like, in the 12 and 12, it talks about some of us couldn't or wouldn't believe that God would perform this miracle of keeping us sober. And I believed that he would, but I didn't believe, I believed he could, but I didn't believe he would, because I felt he secretly was a maniacal being that was playing games with my life. And just, okay, we're going to give her this carrot. Now we're going to make her suffer. And that was my perception of this power. If there is one, he certainly hates me. So, and then she told me, she said, we're going to read the big book 2 paragraphs at a time. And you're going to get a 1935 dictionary, and you're going to ask yourself, how am I like this? How does this relate to me? Because you have a head full of big book and a belly full of booze, and I'm sober and you're not. And she said, I want you to read with your heart and not your mind. I want you, we're going to do the 12 steps because you've never finished them. And she said, if you feel like drinking at the end of that journey, I'll take you out and get you drunk myself. I said, I'm not going to drink. If I don't feel better, I'm going to kill myself because I can't continue this way, and I don't want to be a relapse queen anymore. And so started on this journey. And see, I knew my life was unmanageable, and I knew I'd been powerless for a long time. I knew I was powerless, and I knew my life was unmanageable. I knew that for many years. I already told you what my concept of God was. So she's having me write my first step, my second step. I go into the third step, and she said, Hilary, if you could have a God, any God you want, what would it be? I said, well, it's not going to be a doorknob or a light bulb, okay? I love how she put up with my garbage because I know I was a mess. And I told her, I said, I want to feel, like it says in our book, I want to feel the nearness of our Creator. I want to know what it's like. I want to know what it's like to not want to drink so bad that it hurts. I want to know what it's like to look in the mirror and not despise the creature looking back at me, or I can barely put my mascara on because I can't stand the sight of that trash looking back at me. I want to know what it's like to laugh from my gut. I want to know what it's like to take a shower and feel clean because I can take 20 and I can still feel dirty from the inside out. I want to know what it's like to feel grateful because every night I want to die. I can't stand my feelings. I want to know what it's like to not want to rip my hair out when I hear the topic acceptance in a meeting. I want to know what it's like to hear the birds and see the butterflies. And I just want to feel like I can look people in the eyes. I want to know what it's like to have my innocence. Because I don't think I know what that's ever been, except maybe swinging on a swing when I was 2 or 3. Or rolling down the hill with my brother on the grass. Like, I remember these little moments. She said, baby, that's so good. You know, I'm in Texas. You know, my sponsor calls me baby, sweetie pie, sugar, you know. I sponsor women today, and I don't care how old they are or how much time they have. They're my babies. Because that's how I was raised. Or they're precious. They're just precious. They're just, you know, Marcy White used to call her sponsees. She was never my sponsor, but I heard about her calling her sponsees precious. Yeah. And of course, I'm baby. I'm baby to my sponsor, Polly, and I was baby to Angie. So they're my babies.
Polly, is that Polly P?
Yes.
I'm going to talk to you after we're done with this, but I think she has a problem with not a problem, but the technical piece of this.
Sure.
I've tried to record her before. Maybe you can get her.
You know what? She's coming to visit me.
Oh, is she?
We'll get it done.
Okay, well, great.
You want that woman?
Yeah. I've wondered. We've gone back and forth with text so many times, and then I know that her husband passed, and I was kind of working with her through that part, but I'll let her get past that. But anyway, I'd love to record her if we can ever get her on.
I'll help do it.
All right,
that's what we do.
All right. Okay, so back to you. So we have you're talking about your sponsors there and what they meant to you, and the nicknames you have for each other and such.
Oh yeah, and then where was I before that? Because I get on a tear.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Hold on. Hey, everybody. We're having a little episode here. You know what I always say? I say I don't have wet brain. I just got some damp spots up there. So we're having a little issue right now from too much booze when we were younger. But no, so she was like, great baby on my third step. I just remembered.
You were talking about how you told your sponsor,
yeah,
I want to know what it's like too.
Yes.
All those various things. And then she said, that's great. And so that's where we were.
So then she says, now we're going to do the third step prayer. And, I would cringe whenever she'd come in a meeting and put her arm around me not because of her, but because I still felt so unlovable. Like I wasn't used to that kind of love. And we got on our knees. We did the third step prayer. Of course, I did not use the other words I would use on my own. And I did exactly as it's written in the book. And so we got on our knees, and then she launched me off on that inventory. And she had me write, God, please show me the truth at the top of every page. And I had to write down every single person, entity, everything that I was mad at. And I did. I wrote it all out. I wrote down everything. I wrote out the cause. I wrote out how it affects my self-esteem, my pocketbook, personal relations, sex relations, ambition, security, and the fear around that. I wrote up my fear list. And then when we got to the sex inventory, well, first of all, when we got to the fourth column, excuse me, I didn't mean to skip over that important part. I had to write out stuff, but I had to call her. And I would write a lot of this at the club because the club was open and I was safe there. And here I am doing this writing. And I called her and I said, what do I put in the fourth column for the abusers? She said, you don't write anything. We're going to talk about that when we do your fifth step. But with my parents and all this resentment I had to write it where I lied to them. I stole from them, made them worry, and I still felt like they had no right, but I still had to, if I wait for them to change, I'll be waiting forever. Again, this is my inventory. This is my step work. If I want to get freedom, I have to do the work. And that's the thing. I get out of that victim mentality. So, wrote out the fears, as I said previously, went to the sex inventory, and I called her and I said, I don't remember some of it's just faces from when I was on the street. She said, baby, just write out what you can. You can write descriptions, not of the things but their faces is what she was saying. And she said, do the best you can and bring it on. And now Angie rescues cats. She has a whole foundation that does that. And I remember she'd tell me to get over there and we go rescue a cat. It helped keep my mind clear. Or we go for a walk. She also baked for all these corporations. And so I'd get cookie dough and cookies. And I remember I went over there with a bag of M&Ms, and she likes it real cold in the house. And so she's putting away her 10 cats, giving me cookie dough. And I've got my bag of M&Ms, got my jacket on, and we get all the cats settled. Meow, 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 meow. And so, I think she was perfect for me, because you think about a feral cat hissing at everybody, and that's pretty much what I was doing. So I was like a big feral cat. But anyway, and she's so good with them. And we launched off into this deal, and she had her book, because in my sponsorship line, even with Polly, they write out the amends I'm to make. I can't use the same brain that got me here to get me out of what I've been living in. I need somebody else to light my way, to direct me. They can see things I can't. Again, it comes to my perceptions, my delusions, my motives. I could have ulterior motives in reaching out to people, which many of us do, and then go get drunk because we've done it our way. So I'm reading everything off. And let me tell you this, she didn't make me quit my job working in the club. She said, everybody made you quit your job. You don't drink no matter what. You leave if you feel like drinking, which I would leave. I'd leave crying. I started working at Brooks Brothers. So I'm working at Brooks Brothers in the day. I'm working there sometimes at the club, because I'm not letting go of that old idea, but I'd leave crying. And not getting my voice back, by the way. I'm doing doctor's appointments, doing rounds of medications to help my vocal cords. They don't want to do surgery on the cords because they're afraid it will ruin me for life. And oh my gosh. So I remember, she told me, over to my voice, she said to me one day, she said, why don't you ask God to bring your voice back if it's his will? And I'm like, I'm like, God, 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 God. Everything you say is God. She goes, that's right. And so, of course, our deal was I didn't have to like it. I just got to do it. I can hate it all I want as long as prayed with my feet, right? And my handwriting. But I just, so she didn't make me quit. And I was still working there when I did this inventory. And, I'm reading all the stuff off. She's writing. And she looked at me and she said, Hilary, you do not have a part. You don't have anything. You might have had fears and such, but you didn't cause that to happen to you. She says, the things that happened to you as a little girl should have never happened to any little child. And she's like, I'm so sorry this happened to you. And I believed her. And she could have such empathy even though it didn't happen to her. She had that love and that empathy and saw me. She saw me. She said, your dad's rage is not your fault. Your mother leaving you is not your fault. You stealing and lying and these other things, that's your deal. And then we went into the sex stuff. And we started shaping an ideal. It was very hard for me to read that all to her, and I read it all to her, and we started shaping an ideal, and I was just a baby at this. It's been a process through the years, and I can talk to you more about that. But when it was all said and done, the clouds didn't part. It wasn't like what happened for Bill, but what happened for me is I was relieved that one person in this world knew everything about me and loved me anyway. Every time she would come in a meeting, I'd start crying because I knew she loved me. And let me tell you, there was a few ladies in the group. Again, we're not here because we're all there, but there was a few ladies at the women's meeting I would go to would tell me that I needed to go to another A because I had done other outside issues. And I'm definitely alcoholic, definitely. And they would also do a lot of gossip or mess with my program. And, like, we're not all here because we're all there. And Angie told me to give them give them her phone number, and for me to, anytime they had a question for me that I needed to, then they stopped asking me, but then they would still be talking trash about where I was working and everything. And Angie, one day, her father belonged to the Dallas Country Club. She got dressed up. She invited them all to lunch, and they thought, oh, we're doing a nice little socialite thing.
And for those who don't know, the Dallas Country Club is a very well-to-do kind of club here in
Very
Dallas.
exclusive, very bougie, very, yeah. And which Angie is not. Neither was her father. God, may he rest in peace. She took them over there, and she basically told them that if they mess with me or about me anymore, that she'll have a whole lot to say to them. She called them to the mat. I don't know everything, but she might have practiced her PhD too that day. I don't know in humanity, but all I know is those women never mess with me again. And see, let me just say, the protections that I didn't have as a child, I got from my sponsor. She protected me. And there are other women. I had my birthday party, my belly button birthday. I had a bowling party. All these women, those other healthy women from the meeting came to my bowling party and brought me presents and loved me. There were women that would invite me to their beautiful houses. And I'm like, do you know who you're inviting over here? Like, it would blow my mind. Like, it just blew my mind how you all loved me until I could love myself, bit by bit and piece by piece. And so I remember I had to go home for that quiet hour, and I had to do my 6th and 7th prayer, and she had me write out not just my defects, but my assets. I had to see the good things about me. And then on my 8th step, she told me to start praying for the willingness to be willing, to make amends to my dad. And, 'cause that was one I was never going to do. Not after what he didn't protect me. No way. And, one day I had the courage to fly out there. He was living in California. He and my stepmother live in California, and I flew out there, and I said a lot of things to make amends. I said exactly what I was told to say. And he added a lot to it, and also said that I'd been a psychopath, and I had to keep my mouth shut. I had to keep my mouth shut, and I walked out of there. And these steps are experiential. Like, I can sit here and tell you my story, and I'm hoping it gives you hope, and I'm hoping it gives you the willingness to take these steps, because, like, it's mind-blowing what happens. I walk out of there, and I can start moving my eyes from the sidewalk and to start looking people in their eye, because I did it. I made amends to my mother for calling her every name in the book. There was one time I put my hands on my mother and I punched my mother. And stole from my mother. And I've been able to pay back and do even above and beyond. My mother and my stepfather moved from Colorado to Dallas to be closer to me. My stepfather died a year ago from dementia, and it was very hard on my mother. My mother, I helped her move across over to California. We go to Orange County too, and we have a place out there, and so she's at this wonderful place that she loves out there. And my mother abandoned me, but I don't need to abandon my mother today because of Alcoholics Anonymous. I made amends to my brother for scaring him, for my little brother. He doesn't remember, but I showed up messed up when he was 5, but thank God he doesn't remember. But I made amends to my stepmother, of course, and paid everybody back. I'll tell you, it's been a journey. So I was praying to God to bring my voice back. First it was meh, but then within 2 months it became more prayers, and by the 3rd month my voice started coming back. And it was like, wow. I started singing. You guys in the fellowship started asking me to sing for you, for your parties, for your anniversaries, for your weddings, for birthdays for all, and you knew where I worked. And the thing is that I was totally celibate because there was a time I just got so freaked out, and I think I was the only celibate stripper that ever, because I went from one extreme to the other. I was like, no, don't touch me. But, get away from me, everybody. But what happened was then I started doing it for the public and doing these amazing events, these, weddings and the funerals that were so hard at times, especially for the little ones. But I remember I go back to the club, the club that I had been leaving and crying, because I'm still holding on to that old idea, even though my voice is back and I'm singing, and I walk in there. There was that bachelor party. There was a bachelor party with these guys that were a few years older than me, and we're all good looking. And I worked the whole night. I worked the entire night. And the next day, I had a wedding to sing at down at the Hall of State, which is a place where they have events here in Dallas. And it was the same bachelor party and the wedding that had been at the club. Oh. The night before. And I said, okay, God, you can kill, I'm willing to call him God now, right? I'm like, you can kill me now. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I had no idea, because I had been working with the bride and the mother of the bride. And so I go and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like, no cell phone. So I can't text everybody and tell them. I'm just, I'm by myself with all this, and no phone, because I couldn't leave the venue. Yeah. So I go out and sing my few little songs, and they're smiling at me, and I'm like, I could just die right now. And I'm waiting to get paid, and they all walk over to me, and they said, hey, we were talking about you last night. And I said, I'm sure. And I said, I'm sure, and I'm sure today too. And they said, no. We were there too. I said, it's not the same. You can't even tell me it's the same. And they said, no, but we were wondering why you were there, because you just didn't fit. You didn't fit the environment. And we hear you singing here today, and you're really good at this. This is what you need to be doing. And do you know that I never had to step foot in that club again? Oh. And see, that's how God works. He goes to the most sordid places where we are. It says we do that with 12-step work, but God uses people in these places. And and so I started singing at events, and I got to sing later on for the 11 most influential women of Texas. And I told the gal running that thing, I said, because I'm singing for the governor's wife and all these, Ebby Halliday, who was a big realtor here. And these, I said, do you know my history? She said, Hilary, I don't care about your past. God has changed you. She said, I wouldn't have anybody else sing at my event. And from there, I sang at that event, and that's where I got to sing for the heroes for our military down in Houston. I was invited by a socialite to come sing at this event, and I'm sitting there singing our national anthem, and The Wind Beneath My Wings, and the soldiers are wheelchairing and crutching after their legs had been blown off, and they're giving them houses, and they're thanking me for singing for them. And do you know, I got to meet Billy Gibbons from ZZ Top, and I got to go write music with him. How does that happen? But see, I still had that story I was telling myself that I wasn't worthy. So I was really scared of it. I got to do these things, but I was so scared people would find out about the things I've already shared on your amazing podcast. And, but I'm doing Songwriter in the Round in Nashville. I'm doing all these things, and then I'm getting sick. It's 2008, and I'm getting sicker and sicker. And I do want to back up for a minute. I'm sorry, but in 2003, I was having all of my nightmares happening, and my sponsor said, if you do not go get help, I won't sponsor you anymore. I have found a foundation that will help you with this outside stuff, and you have to go do it. Because, see, I would vacillate from acting out with men to totally not, to being totally don't touch me, but I'd get upset and then I'd go act out. I'd be dating somebody, and if they would hurt me in any kind of way, cheat on me, then I'd go and be just crazy in that area, want to die. And it was just this huge insanity, this huge insanity in personal relationship. And of course, look where I came from. So I went to trauma treatment, and a foundation paid for half of my treatment, and I got loaned the money by one friend and then gifted the other.
Was that the trauma treatment in Arizona?
Yes.
Gotcha.
I went there. Yeah.
Yeah, and so the reason I guess I'm asking some questions here because I know there's going to be women in particular who are listening, but men as well,
Mm-hmm.
who are thinking, I know I act out because of my trauma, but I don't know how to, get this under control. Obviously, the steps can just only go so far. And if they were to search out something, would they just search out trauma treatment, or I mean, what
You
do
know
you?
what? Have them reach out to redsongbird.org.
Got it.
Have them reach out to because that foundation
Gotcha.
vets treat, because I wouldn't send anybody to the same center I went, because it's now owned by a conglomerate. It used to be owned by one person. And I never like to leave one place on record because it changes. If you have a huge corporation take it over, it usually, but back when I went there, it was amazing. And on that note, I was put in a group where we were to read our histories in front of the guys, and the guys were going to do the same with us. And I'm like, what are they thinking? And I hated an entire gender for many years. Let me say this, because speaking on that, I so desperately wanted to have that dream of having a husband and all of that stuff, but I was so jacked up inside. I still believed that I wasn't worthy. I still had all these core beliefs. And I had done my steps several times by the time I went to trauma treatment in 2003. But what happened is that as these guys were reading their histories, and they were on the other side of it, they were at the strip bars, they were seeing women of the night, they were cheating on their women, blah, 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 all that stuff. I heard their stories. They had been sexually abused by a man, maybe, or trying to prove their manhood. Maybe their mother had left them. Maybe they had had physical violence. Maybe their parents died. Like all these other scenarios. And these men shared and sobbed from their souls and hated the men that they had become. It wasn't something they felt good about. Now they talked about the facades they put on out there. And then in that moment, I realized that we were both just hurting little children of God, just trying to find power in counterfeit ways. And as my sponsor would say, as I was doing my fifth step, she told me, every time you walk in that club, baby, you're cutting on your soul, and you're doing the abuse all over again to yourself. And I said, I thought you weren't going to make me quit. She said, no, I'm not, but I'm not going to lie to you either about what it's doing. And that was something I had forgotten to say earlier, but that changed everything for me. Then I saw men totally different. And part of my assignment was to see marriages that were respectful, see parents that treated their children with dignity and respect, and to really, really ask, if somebody has a marriage you want, ask them the questions about relationship, those kinds of things. And it was a game changer for me. Now, I still took a while. I went to my trauma treatment. My brothers made my dad come. I was able to tell the entire truth about my history. And now my dad believes me. And, whether he believes me or not, I was able to get the truth out. So what happened after trauma treatment, part of my story has been, and again, here's more of the dark past, that I've had abortions. And I made a deal with God that I wasn't going to do them anymore. And I was pregnant, and everything in me said not to get another abortion after trauma treatment. And I was pregnant, and after 3 attempts, I ended up getting an abortion, and it was with twins. And my whole world went from light to black. And before that, I had come out of treatment, found out the guy I was dating had been with half the women in Dallas. So I just felt so alone, and I was scared. They had given me a medicine that was bad for the first month of pregnancy, and I just
How many years sober were you?
I was 6 years sober, and for a good year, I wanted to die, and I had a hard time. I did have some relief with that trauma treatment, but they told me, the therapist said, "Don't do this, Hilary. You're dealing with childhood stuff. Don't get the abortion." And I did anyway. See, again, listening to my own fear, and my fear felt like terror. A lot of times, the fear just felt like terror, and that I wouldn't be okay. And I was afraid I'd be like my mom, who suffered financially so much, and you know. Wouldn't eat sometimes so we could, and I didn't want to be that. I didn't want to be that. I was just so afraid I'd be trapped, and or that the babies would come out not okay from the medicine. And so I ended up meeting Polly in 2004 at Brownwood, and Angie had been my sponsor, but she was going through some stuff and not able to call me back for a couple weeks at a time. So I asked Polly to be my sponsor, and Polly and Angie and I are still friends. I just saw her yesterday, and I love her to death. She's my mom/sister. I mean, I'll be forever grateful to her for what she's done for my life. But Polly, she talked about stuff from the podium and the way she acted out with men in the middle of her home group, and I was shocked, but I definitely needed to talk to her. And she said it right in front of her husband. And he sponsored some of those guys she was with, and she was married to somebody else. I mean, like, they witnessed it all, okay? And I'm like, oh my gosh. And so I got Polly as my sponsor, and Polly's walked through things with me. I do want to say that I went through open heart surgery, that I had a 50% chance of surviving in 2011. I just wanted to celebrate my 14 years. I froze eggs the year before that because the doctor said I could take a year and do it.
Is your heart okay now?
My heart will never be absolutely normal, but it's it was a congenital heart defect I didn't know I had. And they fixed it. It's not as enlarged as it used to be. And, there's just certain protocols I have to deal with, but I get to do a whole lot.
Well, lucky you're not drinking and drugging.
I know, which is amazing that I'm alive through that. Like, that's crazy with the congenital heart defect. And so, but Polly watched me date narcissists. So, I would still, after my heart surgery, I couldn't sing again because my left vocal cord was just not moving as fast as the right one. And so they said to give it time. And my lower power was telling me I was stupid. So I went back to college and I got a tutor. And I found out if you have a tutor and you get good sleep and you study, you can make A's and A pluses. Yes. It's amazing. And then after some time, my voice, I kept doing the prayers like I had done before, and my voice started coming back, and I started singing again for our conferences, for our stuff, and then I started singing for I started singing for other events again, and then I met a producer, and we started writing these songs, and I started doing all this amazing stuff in the music industry. And I had friends of mine. I kept telling them, I'm too old, it's too late, and they're like, rubbish, because they're from England. And they invited me out to do a really, really special event with some very famous musicians, and they're like, look at what the crowd did. And I started doing my stuff, and my career started taking off. And, the thing is that after my open heart surgery, I said, the other thing is I wouldn't be truthful in the music industry about my age because I was ashamed of how old I was, because they do judge you on that. And then I just didn't care anymore. So I just stopped. Now I'm proud of my age. I'm like, I'm lucky to have made it this far, but the things that people said could never be done, we did. God made possible, and the people around me. I mean, you guys love me so much that you guys are like, go on, little bird. Come on, baby bird. You can do this. And you guys see things I can't. And because of the we of the program, I've been able to do amazing things in my career, and that I never thought possible.
And I also wanted to ask you about, you were talking about being married last year, I think you said?
Yes.
So how did that come about?
Oh my gosh. So Polly, I again, I was dating these narcissists, these abusers. I mean, I could just, nice guys wanted to date me, but I would just choose the ones that were not. And then I finally Polly and I were doing an inventory, and I saw that my core belief was that I still didn't think I deserved it, that I deserved all these things that were familiar to me. And when I saw that, here I am, and I'm doing all this amazing stuff in the spotlight and getting these awards and all this, getting these accolades, yet inside, I'm not worthy of this kind of love. Well, when I saw that, I stopped painting red flags green. I stopped allowing romantic or friendships that I saw were not healthy. And I started changing, and I started really taking care of myself. And I met my husband at a recovery event I was singing at this event, and he works in the industry, and I saw him there. He didn't see me. We didn't date until a year later, but we started dating in 2020. And you know what? He asked me to lunch several times. He asked me to a formal dinner, official dinner, and we became exclusive later on, and then we ended up getting engaged in Africa, and then we got married in 2023. And let me tell you, this man has never called me a name. He's never bucked up on me to intimidate me. He would never want me to feel afraid. He's never forced me to do anything I don't want to do. He is so loving. Of course, we've had discussions about things. We have respectful conflict resolution. I have the relationship I've always wanted, and I never thought I could have. We courted like teenagers. We were nervous like teenagers. And we were both, it's both our first marriage and hopefully both our last. But I kept continuously giving that relationship to God. I didn't make him my higher power. He didn't make me his. We just took it a day at a time. And I want to say something for the new people out there. I talked about the third step. Today I look in the mirror and I see a precious daughter of a most loving and merciful God. I got to step 3 and I wrote, Dear Blank. I got to step 6 and 7, I wrote, Dear HP. I got to 8 and 9, I wrote, Dear God. And in step 11, I wrote, Heavenly Father. In step 9, I started sponsoring women, and I started practicing 10, 11, and 12. And I loved the prayers of St. Francis because he loved animals. And I started doing 12-step calls early on. But I sponsor women today, and it's such a beautiful experience. But what I want to tell you is that today I feel the nearness of my Creator. Today I take a shower and I'm already clean from the inside out. I'm just washing a little dirt off. Today I'm a grateful alcoholic. Today Sometimes I don't like the topic acceptance, but I do my acceptance stuff and I get there. I had frozen eggs before my heart surgery. It didn't work out when we thought them 2 years ago. And it was devastating. And, you all carried me through that. And it took me a while to get to the acceptance of that. But my serenity prayer does that for me. I laugh from my gut today. I feel like my innocence has been restored. My license plate says yay. I laugh from my gut, like I said, with my dogs. I hear the birds. I see the butterflies. I feel like I have the secret to life. And today I'm not above or below anybody. I walk shoulder to shoulder with my fellow sufferers, and we encourage each other to be the things that we never thought we could be. And all I know is I want 5/9/97 to be my sobriety date, and that I'm busy in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, and that I'm doing the best I can do to be his vessel, to help his kids. With or without a husband, with or without health, with or without money. That's what I want. That'll be my greatest legacy.
This has been great. Both these episodes we've recorded here, Hilary. I have so much Hillary with one L. I have so much enjoyed this. I know the listeners are going to enjoy this. They'll hear this. Oh gosh, all over the world, and I know that they're going to find so much from your story and get so much hope. And God bless you. I appreciate you.
Thank you so
coming
much for
over.
having me.
Of course, of course. As always, we end this with page 164 from the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. It says, abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to Him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us, like me and Hilary with one L, as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then.
Amen.
Once again, amen. And thank you for coming by. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you once again, Hilary R.W., for joining me for a couple of episodes of Sober Speak there. Episodes number 392 and 393. I think I got that right. And it sure was a pleasure spending time with you. God bless you. I know the Sober Speak listeners are going to enjoy what they just heard, or I know they did enjoy what they just heard, I should say. And anyway, just thank you so much for coming here, spending time with me. And remember now, folks, we do not want you sharing your toothbrush. However, we would love for you to share both of Hilary's episodes with another friend or family member. So if you can, just pause that device, click the share button, get it on over to that friend or family member. It may be just what they need today. Now, on to a little bit of listener feedback. Lavina sends in a voicemail, and you ask yourself, how can I send in a voicemail? Well, you can do it a couple different ways. Number one is in the show notes, if you know what that is, episode notes within the podcast player that you're listening to, there should be a little button that says leave a message, and you can hit that and leave a message, or you can go to our website, www.soberspeak.com, click on the contact us page, and you should have a little microphone there where you can send in a message. So here is a voicemail from Lavina.
Hello, John. My name is Lavina Best. I was incarcerated under the name Neil. I just got out of prison about Monday. It'll be 3 weeks. And I wanted you to know that because of Sober Speaks, I was able to do time at Mabel Bassett in Oklahoma without getting high. And that's impressive because there's a lot of drugs there. I want you to know that your program on podcasts on the tablets kept me clean, and gave me a good fresh start. I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for you, and I'm grateful for the podcast Recovered, because between the two of those podcasts, I made it, and I'm still making it. And I go to AA and NA out here on the outside. And once again, thank you. Thank you, and thank you to all of your speakers. You have wonderful speakers. And shout out to Mabel Bassett and Eddie Warriors. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you so much, Lavina. I'm so glad that things are going very well for you. I do remember when you had written in at another point, and you got a letter, a physical letter to Mr. Mike, who monitors our PO box, and I'm so glad to hear from you. And a shout out to all the recipients of your shout out, whoever is listening out there. And I'm glad you were able to let them know that you were thinking of them. And we are thinking of you as well. God bless you, Lavina. I got to admit, when I say Lavina, every time I say it in the back of my head, I'm singing Lavina, Lavina. High, oh, silver away. So anyway, sorry about that, Lavina. I didn't mean to butcher up your name. It's a very pretty name, but I just am singing that song in the back of my head when I hear it. Anyway, Caitlin writes in, and Caitlin wrote in on the Facebook application. By the way, if you're not in Facebook, in our super secret Facebook group, you can go to Facebook and look up Sober Speak Secret Group. Ask for admission on into the group, and we will get you on in. And so, anyway, Caitlin writes in and she says, "Hey there, John M. My name is Caitlin, and I am an alcoholic. I've been sober 3 years. My sobriety date was August 21st, or is August 21st of 2021. My sponsor actually turned me on to your podcast, and as a male lady, it's extremely relaxing and comforting to listen to your stuff on my mail route, especially when I'm having a rough day. Thank you for all you do and for everyone and allowing people to tell their stories. It reminds me that I'm not alone when I start feeling down. Thanks for all you do, and I hope you have a great rest of your week." And then she puts her email. I would say the email, it's a very cool email, but I don't want to give away her anonymity or whatever. Anyway, thank you so much, Caitlin, for writing in. We so much appreciate it. God bless you. If you're not following us on Instagram, we encourage you to do that. That's at SoberSpeak, all one word. There's almost 3,000 followers now, and the wonderful Miss Cassandra. No, I always get that wrong. Cassandra. I always pronounce that wrong. I'm so sorry, Cassandra. If you're listening to this, if you made it this far with my silliness and all that sort of stuff. But anyway, Cassandra does all kinds of wonderful posts in there. And though, if you're happening to DM us, slipping on into the DMs, I am the one that is monitoring the DM box. Wait, is that how you say it? The DM box? I don't think so. I'm so uncool. But I'm monitoring the DMs, the inbox, whatever you want to call it. All right. That right there is another episode of Sober Speak in the can. Keep coming back. It works if you work it. I take this 1 week at a time. I always hope to be back next week. I think at some point I'm going to have to quit, right? I can't go on like forever. But who knows? You know, I got to tell you, we're creeping up on 3 million downloads. And so I've been looking at that lately and I go, what do I do when I reach 3 million? Anything in particular? Maybe nothing, but anyway. The last thing I wanted to say is may God bless you and keep you until then. Thank y'all for listening in.